Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from Not the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So this spoiler season has been a bit crazy, well, for a lot of reasons. Number one, I'm not in the studio right now, as you can see. My recording schedule is a bit weird, and trying to make the best of it. But yeah, like 30-ish new cards just got released, essentially. Some from the pre-cons, some from the actual main set, and there's a lot of heavy hitters in there. So with that said, let's jump into it. And you might think I have a more thought-out approach of this, but I only have so much time to record this, so all these cards are in alphabetical order. So here we go. Anthrax, Rampage, a sorcerer for 5 mana in red. Destroy artifacts you don't control, then exile the top X card of your library, where X is the number of artifacts that were put in graveyards in the battlefield this turn. You can put a creature card, exile this way onto the battlefield, it gains haste. Return to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is one where I wish there was some way to make it so that treasures could not be sacrificed in response. If it's like, I mean, you don't want to split second it because you still want this thing to be able to be countered, but like being able to say like, hey, yeah, you can't sacrifice your treasures in response. I get to destroy your treasures. That's your fault for playing Dockside Extortionist. And then again, you get to do a lot of things with this. Again, getting rid of all those artifacts you don't control. It's a one-sided board wipe, and that 5 mana is a bit much for that. But again, being able to, getting a creature off the top of your library essentially can be quite great. So yeah, pretty fun. Pretty fun. Yeah, so be careful with this one, but it can be quite fun. Next up, Armproof. Oh, did I mention that this is my first time seeing these cards? So here we go. Enchantment for 3 mana, enters the battlefield, investigate twice. Okay, that's interesting. Clues you control are equipment, addition to their types, and have equipped creature gets +0/+0 and has equipped 2. Yeah. Okay, so beat your opponents with books. Essentially, there is that, what's the red one where it's like you're just like smacking each other essentially with any kind of artifact, essentially. So, I mean, this is somewhat similar to that. This one basically gives you 2 equipment to essentially when it comes in, 2+2+0s that you can equip for 2. Interesting, very specific. Really only we'll see play in clue-centric decks, though, I assume. Or, I mean, maybe a blink deck could utilize this to keep blinking to get more clues. But yeah, there's more effective ways to draw cards, like, like a Muldrifter. Next up, Audience Patrostani. Source for 3 mana. Create a 0/1 green plant creature token, then draw cards equal to the number of differently named creature tokens you control. Yeah, green needed more ways to draw cards. Okay, yeah, so luckily this is, again, differently named creature tokens you control. It does not include, say, treasures, clues, all those kind of things, unless you make them into creatures. But yes, this one still can give you an absurd amount of card draw. I mean, at the least, it's giving you 1, which is not good. I mean, if you get 2 out of this, man, that's okay. But yeah, you're probably, if you're utilizing this card, going to be getting well more than 3+. So yeah. If you've got a deck that is not a tribal deck where you're caring about certain kinds of creature types, but it's more just like, yeah, I get every single kind of creature type out there, like, every Selesnya deck ever made, essentially, then yes, you are able to, and I don't mean to group Selesnya decks in that way, but yeah, it's kind of a joke. Anyways, if you have a token-based strategy and you're making a lot of different tokens, sometimes you don't really care if it's like a human soldier or a soldier human or whatever they are, essentially, spirit, whatever they are. You're going to be able to draw an absurd amount of cards with this 3-mana spell, and it gives you a 0/1, which is quite nice, too. Moving on, Detective of the Month. That's a hilarious name. Hey, look, there's our Detective of the Month on the wall. Good job! You did a great job being a detective. Wow, that's a really weird agency. 2/3 Human Detective for 3 mana, Ascend. So again, City's Blessing. If you got 10 more opponents, that's going to happen in Commander. You're playing Commander. Unless you're playing CDH, then yeah, CDH might not get you to 10 permanents, but still, as long as you have the City's Blessing, detectives you control can't be blocked. So Detective Tribal, Rejoice, unblockability. Also, Alec for your, Changeling, essentially, deck as well. That works too. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you make a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. So, yeah, I mean, this is basically unblockable detectives, and you're in blue, so you're going to be drawing a lot of cards, especially on opponent's turns too. So, yeah, making a lot of creature tokens. Yeah, I mean, this just can build you an army that is unblockable on its own, essentially, if you're just utilizing this in a draw-based deck. And of course, if you've got any kind of populate effects, potentially it can work as well. Or again, if you've got those changeling shapeshifters, or yes, if you have detective tribal, which apparently is maybe a thing now at this point. Next up, Feather. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got Feather, Radiant Arbiter, 4/3, Angel, Flying, and Lifelink. I'm assuming this is the face commander of this deck. For 3 mana, again, very specific mana cost, red, white, white. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell that targets only feather, you may choose any number of other creatures that spell could target and pay 2 for each of those creatures. If you do for each of those creatures, copy the spell, copy targets that creature. Copies of permanents come token. So this is an interesting one. It's kind of a mesh in a way of, gosh, what's that Simic commander from Eldraine that like doubles things up? Kind of like that. Also kind of like Zerda, but not as good in that as well. Am I thinking of not Zerda? What's the one? I used to have. It's like my 3rd deck I ever built, 4th deck. Zada Hedron Grinder. There we go. So it's kind of like a worse Zada in a way, essentially. Except this counts all non-creature spells, but it does make you pay, essentially, to radiate that out. So, yeah, it's worse in that way. It's better in that, again, it can count any non-creature spell, including, say, enchantments, including artifacts, whatever it is, essentially. So you can do that. You have to pay extra, though, so that is a downside to it. You can also potentially target your opponent's creatures, again, because it said choose any of the other creatures. It does not say your own, so there are times when maybe a certain aura might help you out if like you have like a goad aura and then you like copy it. It is interesting. I mean, I think this one has potential. I mean, there's probably some really weird things that, you know, are non-creature that do target that you can copy. That'd be pretty weird and fun and crazy. But yeah, have to think on this one as to what all the crazy things that you can do are. Again, at a base level, just thinking like, again, like I kind of, it's probably a bad thing to say, but like I kind of think that Zada, I mean, I just prefer that because it's like, oh, okay, I cast a 1-mana spell. I drew 7. Cool, good for me. And this is just, it's interesting. It's very interesting. It probably has some potential that I'm not thinking of. Moving on. Follow the Bodies. Okay. Sorcerer for 3 mana. Gravestorm. I love seeing that back. All right. When you cast a spell, copy for each permanent engraver from the battlefield this turn. That can be quite a bit. Investigate. Oh, very cool. Very flavorful. Okay, so this can make an absurd amount of tokens. I think there's only one other card in the existence of Magic that has Gravestorm. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but there's not many. Yeah, there's definitely not many. I think it was one of those Time Spiral cards with like they're testing things out. Regardless, being able to make an absurd amount of clues out of nowhere. Cool. The problem with this one though is that it is sorcery speed. I don't think that it should be sorcery speed. I don't know why you limited this card in that way. I mean, yeah, I guess you're disincentivized to essentially wrath the board on your turn and then cast this instead of like responding to a wrath. So it's interesting. Again, probably for more clue-based decks or ones that can play with a lot of artifacts or ones that want to sacrifice a lot of things. Yeah, you can still get a good amount of value out of this with other decks too. But yeah, it's a very interesting one. Again, I wish it was instant speed. Next up, Havoc Eater, a 3/3 elemental with flying that costs 7 mana in total with some really sick art. When it enters the battlefield for each opponent, go up to 1 turn creature player controls, get a counter on Havoc Eater. We're actually told power of creatures go this way. Okay, all right, that's spicy. This is quite spicy. Again, ETB Goad is not a new thing. I mean, there's an entire commander that just does that. And yeah, that's quite powerful. Like, it goes every single creature, essentially. This one, just goading 1 creature each for 7 mana, would not be that great. For a 3/3 of flying, you could still get value out of it, obviously with, like, blink effects and whatnot. I guess you're in red, so more like temporary clone effects. But yeah, being able to get an absurd amount of counters on this, yeah, basically, you're already incentivized with Goad to probably target your opponent's biggest and best creature for the most part. So yeah, you got a 10/10 over there, you got an 8/8, you got a 6/6, whatever it is. Cool. In total, that's one extra 24 power, so I just have a massive creature on the board. Essentially, this, I mean, it's not guaranteed to be the biggest creature on the board. I mean, out of your opponents, it definitely could be. As long as you can target your opponent's creatures, and have Hexproof or whatnot, yeah, you can target the biggest ones. This becomes the biggest thing on the board, and your opponent's biggest threats are swinging at each other. So this can be a massive play. And again, definitely a really good blink target for you if you're in, you know, either white or blue, most likely for your blink effects, or a Feign Death type effect if you're in black as well. Next up, Hot Pursuit. Enchantment for 2 mana. Enters the battlefield, suspect target creature above it controls. As long as it remains on the battlefield, the creature is goaded. Nice. Okay. I like that this is, I'm just going to already talk without even reading the rest of this, but I do like that you're having an enchantment that goads a creature and it's not an aura. So you're not like stuck and like, oh, great, that creature got dealt with. Okay, what now? At the beginning of combat your turn, if 2 or more players have lost the game, gain control of all goaded and or suspected creatures until their turn, untap them, they gain haste. Oh, that's so spicy. Okay. That is super spicy. Now, obviously, this is somewhat of a feel bad of a card if you're playing like with not 4 people. Like if you just, I mean, there are plenty of commander games out there like, oh, hey, like, okay, we got 6, so let's split into 2 pods of 3. You play this and you're like, okay, well, that didn't work because you're never going to get down to the point where 2 players or more have lost the game. So there you go. If you're playing a bigger pod, obviously like 5+, this is going to happen more often where you get to this. But essentially, if you're down to just a one-on-one and like you can goad creatures or suspect them, you probably just win because it's basically like insurrection. It's like a delayed insurrection. So this is very nice. Yeah, it's very, very nice. I like it. Suspected creature bug controls. Also, it's goaded. I mean, just at a base level, that's already nice to start off with. And then, yeah, a game-winning effect essentially at the end if you are one of the last two players. That's pretty good. Although this could convince other players to maybe go up against you because, like, hey, if this player gets there, a lot of our things are goaded or suspected. They're going to win. Take them out. So it could be a reason, but probably not. Moving on. Immortal Obligation. An instant for 1 and a white. Return target creature card from an opponent's graveyard to the battlefield under their control. A duty counter on it. For as long as that creature has a duty counter on it, it is go to can't attack your opponent control. It can't block creature. That's hilarious. Oh, I love that. This is a very cool political card where it's like, all right, hey, who wants their creature back? And they're like, I do. And you're like, here you go. Oh, I can't attack you with it. Okay, I guess I'll go swing at that other player. Cool. So yeah, basically a way to say, oh, whatever the best creature out of a graveyard is potentially. You don't have to politic it, obviously, because it's forced to attack with the goading. And then, yeah, just start swinging. Could be quite fun. Keep in mind, do not do this against a blink deck or a deck that has like Feign Death type effects because they're going to be like, okay, cool. All right, I blink it, and now that counters off of it. Cool. Or I guess counter manipulation could work too. If they have something that can like move it, that's not good for you either. But a really cool card. Next up. Innocuous Researcher, a 3/4 Centaur detective, because that's a thing that costs 4 mana in green. Parlay. When it attacks, each player reveals the top card of the library. For each non-land card revealed this way, you investigate. Then each player draws a card. So very friendly. You know, I mean, I guess the attacking part is not friendly, but it's like, hey, everyone, do good things. By the way, I'm swinging at you. At the beginning of your end step, you may untap all lands you control. If you do, you can't cast spells until your next turn. Interesting. Okay. That's interesting. So basically, yeah, I mean, I think that's the first time we've ever really seen that. Untap all lands you control, so this is kind of like a Wilderness Reclamation, but with a catch on it where it's like, okay, you can't cast spells. This, I mean, it's a massive upside, obviously, so you can utilize, you know, your clues that you're making. Obviously, any other activated abilities you can really heavily utilize as well on creatures that might have things you have to pay for. Yeah, I mean, being able to not cast spells, though, that's pretty huge. Especially since, like, let's say that you're using this in, like, a blue deck. Then you're like, your opponent's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I was afraid you'd have counter spells, but since you use this, you don't. Or, like, you can't counter my things. Or you can't react to something I'm about to do. Or you can't, like, you know, take out one of my creatures in combat, you know, with, you know, like a Swords of Plowshares. So be careful with that, obviously, because that is a downside. I mean, I can definitely see this being used in, like, a group hug type strategy. It's pretty interesting. We shall see. Moving on. Knowledge is power. Oh, really cool art right there. Enchantment for 5 mana total Azorius. Creature you control get +X for X's number of cards you've drawn this turn. Okay. Okay, so at a base level on your turn, it's ++1, which is very, 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 very bad for 5. That being said, you're obviously in blue, and if you have mana open ever, I don't know how your opponents decide to block. Because, yeah, if you swing at them and they're like, okay, they got like 8 mana open, what's the chances that they have like an X draw spell that's an instant speed that they just cast and all of a sudden their creatures are like +6/+6 out of nowhere? Yeah, this can be a game-ending card. Again, it makes combat very, very tricky for your opponents. Again, on offense or defense. Again, yeah, if you're playing against blue, obviously, and if that player has got mana open, you're in trouble. So, yeah, this is a massive pump effect. I like the design. Very cool. I mean, at a base level, this could be very bad, though, obviously, if you're not utilizing it properly, I guess. If, like, you're on an opponent's turn and you don't have any mana open and this is just on the battlefield, it's like, oh, can't my creatures get +nothing? My opponent knows I'm able to do anything about it. Interesting. Moving on. Merchant of Truth, a 2/5 angel detective with flying that costs 4 mana. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, investigate. Clues you control have exalted? Okay, all right. Yeah, that's pretty absurd. So essentially, yeah, aristocrat style decks, get ready for this one. Again, it is non-token, so there is that. Obviously, though, you're gonna have plenty of, you know, regular creature fodder if you have like a Bloodghast or whatnot, that kind. But yeah, I mean, being able to, again, get clues when your creatures are dying, that's very nice because, yes, that is additional card advantage if you're paying to actually sacrifice them to draw cards. Also, other ways you can benefit from having them, like, you know, like a Quark Lair and Ironworks, maybe like an artifact strategy, but you might just want to keep those in play because giving your clues exalted is crazy. absolutely crazy when it comes to a deck that can utilize them in these kinds of ways. Being able to say like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I've got like 30 clues in play because, you know, I'm playing aristocrats and I decided to get a lot of creatures out and then just sacrifice them, get more creatures out, sacrifice them, reanimate those creatures, sacrifice them, and then all of a sudden, oh, okay, I swing with my one creature and hit you for 40. So yeah, this gives you a lot of different avenues to utilize this. I really like this design. I think it's very, very spicy. Remember that you can only attack alone, though, if you're going to benefit from that Exalted. Moving on. MobVerdict Sorcerer for 4 mana. Oh, they're pointing at me. Wonder why. Secret Council. Each player secretly votes for another player. Then those votes are revealed. For each vote an opponent received, MobVerdict deals 2 damage to that player and each creature that player controls. For each vote you receive, draw a card. Okay. That is spicy. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, I mean, like, if, like, let's say a 4-player game, right? If all 3 of you are on board and that other player over there is doing some mean things, you're like, okay. Yeah, 6 damage to your face and then 6 damage to each creature control. This can be a board wipe easy for most of their creatures, if not all their creatures. And then, yeah, that player's probably picking you because you cast a spell and you're like, sure, draw a card, cool. They might pick someone else, though. I mean, it depends on, like, you know, what kind of creatures are out there. The votes might get split depending on what is going on. So, yeah, some interesting things with this one. Definitely a good political card. One that it might, you know, blow up in your face potentially if you don't realize kind of the situation that you're in, essentially. And players like, yeah, no, 2 of us picked you, and let's get rid of your best things, essentially. So, pretty interesting. But at least with that, you get to draw some cards, too. Moving on. On the Trail. Enchantment for 1 into green. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you may put a land in front of your hand. Okay. Wizards. Hey, Wizards. Who in your, biggest seat at the table is a Simic player? There's got to be someone up there who's just like, Simic needs more help. They don't have enough help. They need more. More draw for Simic, more lands for Simic. Ah! What the heck? Okay. Yeah, I mean, green. This is technically just green, but you know it's really a Simic card because of the card draw aspect, even though green gets a lot of draw too. But yeah. Every single turn, let's say you're set up properly and you can draw cards and you've got a deck that's Simic and you're doing all that, right? You can essentially get 4 cards with each trip around the table. 4 cards. 4 lands you have to play with each trip around the table. I mean, it requires some setup, yes, but like in a deck that's looking to draw, if you just throw in a Ristic Study, that might do it for you. What? Why? Why was this needed? Why? Okay, Simic just gets another great card. That's how things work. Moving on. Otherworldly Escort, a 4/3 human detective with flash that costs 4 mana. When it dies, if it's not a spirit from the battlefield under its control with 4 charge counters on it, it's a spirit detective. Okay, charge counters are a bit weird anyways. Pay 1, a white, tap, and remove a charge counter from it. Destroy target creature that dealt damage to this turn. That's pretty spicy. I mean, the charge counter is kind of weird because it's like, oh no, I've perished. Coming back. I'm powered up and vengeful. I don't know why they decided to call them charge counters, but I mean, it's interesting. It's a good deterrent, essentially. It's one of the very few creatures that just like when it dies, comes right back itself. Yeah. And I guess technically if you can remove it from being a spirit, if you can like change it to being something else, you can just keep having it die again and again and again and again. So there's that. Kind of fun. But yeah, being able to destroy creatures that dealt damage to you, that's a good little vengeance right there. Good like, hey, don't come at me. Attack deterrent. Moving on. Prisoner's Dilemma. This looks interesting. Sorcerer for 5 mana with flashback for 7. Each opponent secretly chooses Silence or Snitch. Many choices are revealed. If each opponent chooses Silence, it's going to deal 4 damage to each of them. Interesting. If each opponent chooses Snitch, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 8 damage to each of them. Otherwise, Prisoner's deals 12 damage to each opponent chose Silence. Oh my gosh. That is so spicy. I love that you get to flash this back. So like players might think they made the wrong decision the first turn and then they're changing it up the next one. That is spicy. Oh my gosh. I'm going to love to see this play out, but also like panic essentially when this is playing out because yeah, if every, oh my gosh, it's so cool. All right, moving on. Ransom Note. Artifact clue for 1, enters battlefield, surveil 1, pay 2, sacrifice, choose 1, cloak the top of your library, go target, draw a card. I mean, not great. Again, like every card in this, in the pre-cons are just like, put it rare that are the new ones essentially. I don't find this to be a rare. It's interesting, I guess. It's flexible. maybe artifact decks. Anyways, next up, moving on. Redemption Arc, an enchantment aura for 3 mana. Enchant creature is indestructible and is goated. Love it. 1 in a white exile enchant creature. So this one's a very flexible aura, essentially, where it's like, yeah, there are going to be times you're like, yeah, I'm equipping this on my own creature. Enchanting my own creature essentially with this because I want my creature to be indestructible. The fact that it's goated might not matter to you, where you're like, yeah, I can just swing freely now because it's indestructible. So, and I don't really care about having it back for blocking, or if you have vigilance, even better. So there's going to be times where it's like, yeah, I'll equip my own. Other than that, it's kind of like a Darksteel mutation in a way where it's like, yeah, I'm throwing that on your creature. It's indestructible now, and it's got to swing elsewhere. So there you go. You can also get rid of it when you need to, which is good because that panic button is nice, because if not, yeah, the other 2 players get taken out, and it's just you and that player with this on one of their creatures. Like, cool, thank you for the indestructible creature that has to swing and is swinging at you. So yeah, you can kind of panic button, get it away as well once it's no use to you anymore. Moving on, Rake the Crime, instant for 4 mana. Pretty specific mana cost, 1 blue. Exile target non-land card in a graveyard that was put there from anywhere this turn. Copy it, cast copy, paying its mana cost. That's spicy. If you have a mill deck or a self-mill deck, pretty interesting. I mean, other than that, like, yeah, if I guess any kind of a board wipe will solve this as well. It's like, oh, I'll take the best creature. Cool. It is a pretty specific mana cost. I wouldn't see this in a lot of decks that are like more than 2 color probably, but it is an interesting card. Again, if you've got a mill deck and you're like, I mill half your library. Cool. All right, let me just take the best thing out of your library, or out of your graveyard essentially, and just cast it for free. Sweet. Pretty cool. Next up, Serene Sluth, a 2/2 human detective for 2 mana. Enters the battlefield, investigate. Cool, make a clue. At the beginning of combat your turn, investigate for each goated creature you control. Then each creature you control is no longer goated. Interesting. Interesting. I don't know what to say about that. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Moving on. Oh, cool, Commander. Sophia, Dogged Detective. Clever name, Wizards. Well done. 3/4 human detective for 4 mana in Bant. Enters the battlefield. Create tiny. Oh, it's so cute. A legendary 2/2 Dog Detective creature over trample. Oh, a Dog Detective. It's like Scooby-Doo. Oh my gosh. I wonder if that's the inspiration. It looks kind of like Scooby, I guess. There you go. 1 sacrifice an artifact. Get a counter each dog you control. Whenever a dog you control deals combat to a player, make a food token, then investigate. Okay, I mean, I guess fortunately, but not unfortunately, it is the weakest, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. Depending, like blood tokens are probably close to. But like, it is one of the weaker kinds of tokens. Like, if it was a treasure, be like, I hate this card because treasures are already annoying. But yeah, food, you can do some different kinds of things. It is getting more support lately, so there is that. That being said, you also don't have to utilize it as food. You can just utilize it as pay 1, sacrifice it, get counters on your dog. So yeah, dog tribal with this, with like food essentially, and pumping your dog army can be quite spicy. Yeah, use some counterplay in there as well, utilizing cards that are like, hey, creatures with counters get trampled, creatures with counters have flying, or just unblockable, or whatnot. So you get some pretty cool things you do this one. Obviously, you're gonna proliferate colors as well. Good populate colors as well, though don't populate your legendary dog because it will just go away. Anyways, moving on. Take the Bait. Instant for 4 mana in Boros. Cast a spell during an opponent's turn and only during combat. Very specific. Prevent all damage to be dealt to you and finds targets you control this turn. Untap attacking creatures and go the method of pain phase. Additional combat. Oh, yes! Okay. I love cards like this. Like, I think Illusionist Gambit is pretty similar, essentially, but basically being like, hey, okay, cool. You were gonna swing at me. I don't like that. I really don't like that at all. Let's just say that didn't happen, and let's try this again. Okay, Act 2. Go swing at someone else, hit them with your extra combat. You're welcome. Now, obviously, this has a slightly unintended downside if you're playing against like an Ishin deck, and they're like, okay, cool, thanks for all the extra combat triggers, appreciate that. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting effect. Very, very cool. Next up, Tangle Trove Kelp, a 6/6 clue plant, because that's the thing. What's a clue plant? Like, we're getting kind of weird with the clues right now. It's like, that plant, I think it might be a clue. Anyways, for 7 mana, Ward 2, because Wizards like throwing Ward on everything. At the beginning of each combat, other clues you control become 6/6 plant creature tokens each other types of turn. Why is this not legendary? Oh my gosh. Pay 2, sacrifice it, draw a card. Why is this not legendary? Why is this not legendary? Why don't we have clues, smack your opponents in the face, tribal? Wizards. I guess that's my only notes on this one. I like the design. I think it's pretty spicy. It's weird that it's a clue plant, but yeah, what it does is really cool. So yeah, you can make a lot of clues, swing at your opponents. If you've got a clue deck, congratulations. Here's a good finisher for you. Next up, Trouble in Pairs. Trouble in Paris is how I read that at first, and I was like, wait, nope, that's not it. Trouble in Paris, but also Trouble in Paris, potentially. Enchantment for 4 mana. If an opponent begins next turn, the player skips that. Awesome. Whenever opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draws their second card each turn, or cast their second spell each turn, draw a card. Okay, I mean, thank you, Wizards, for giving mono white more card draw. I appreciate that. This is probably a good way to go about doing it. It's kind of punishing players for doing too much, right? Attacking too many creatures at you, drawing too many cards, essentially. Also, if they try to take extra turns, they don't get to do that. That being said, just for once, Wizards, I would like it if you put cards in uncommon, in common, and not just in precons, where it doesn't matter anyways, that actually give card draw. I'm not saying make this an uncommon in a set. I'm not saying that. I'm saying give mono white card draw at the uncommon level so that you're not just like, haha, this card's now like $15. We made yet another mono white card that's $15. Because if you're gonna play mono white and you want to do well with card draw, you need to spend money. It's weird. Yes, you can do things on a budget. You absolutely can. But it seems like every single time they have an interesting design for mono white card advantage, it's always at rare or a mythic because they know it's going to drive sales. That is annoying, Wizards. Bad Wizards. Bad, bad, bad. Also, I expect to see someone alter this with Trouble in Paris, because that's funny. Next up, Vengeful Tracker, a 2/2 human detective for 2 mana. Whenever opponent sacrifices an artifact, 2 damage to them. Yeah. Treasures. If you sacrifice your treasures, you're going to take a lot of damage. So I guess here's the other thing again. You play this, your opponent's like, oh, well, I got 3 treasures in play. Do I want to take 6 damage eventually for 3 mana? Probably not. Going to sacrifice them, cast an instant, or just not use the mana. That being said, this can really stop treasures in their tracks for a while. And of course, if you got this in a deck that's like very punishing, like a hate bear style deck essentially, you can really make it so that your opponents might not have many options. Moving on. World Soul's Rage, source for X red in a green. When it's going to deal X damage to any target, put to X lane cards from your hand and or graveyard on the battlefield. Tapped. Graveyard is a big thing with this as well. Keep that in mind. Yeah, taking out a target, I mean, that's nice. Could be your opponent's face, could be a finisher with this one, or a creature or a planeswalker, and also just dumping a bunch of lands. You probably need, a good amount of card draw in your deck to ensure that you have lands in your hand, but also, again, if you got fetch lands, graveyard, good to do that too. Moving on, Niv-Mizzet is back. Okay, here we go. I've not read this one yet. All right, 5 color. That's what we need, Wizards. Although, actually, stepping aside here really quick, I was really hoping for a colorless Niv-Mizzet. Like we have Niv as is it, then went to 5 color, and it's like, can't we just go colorless? I mean, I guess the big mean jelly bean might do that at some point, right, Wizards? But okay, anyways. Not gonna be upset about a 5 color commander. 6/6 Dragon Avatar for 5 mana, flying hexproof from multicolor. That's nice. Whenever it deals combat to a player, it deals X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards. You gain X life for X is the number of differently colored pairs among permanents you control that are exactly 2 colors. Okay, so basically Guild Tribal deck. We already kind of saw Guild Tribal with the previous Niv, essentially, where that ETB got you things from different, guilds essentially off the top of your library. That being said, yeah, I give this double strike. I maybe get extra combats. I get that trigger a lot. And then, yeah, if I got a lot of guild things in play, cool. I'm going to destroy people's faces or their things. I'm also going to draw a certain amount of cards. I'm also going to play infinite life gain in ways. This is a spicy card. This is very spicy. Now, would I have preferred to see a really crazy colors version of Mizzet? Probably, but would that be based on the lore? Probably not, because Niv is all colors. But, like, I think I was talking with some other people from my play group. They're talking about, like, how, like, Niv, when Niv was going into, like, I don't even know. There was, like, the vessel or whatever. Like, you'd have, like, Niv made a mistake and also created a clone that was colorless. Lore people, help me out. That could happen, right? So, yeah. I mean, it's a very solid, interesting commander. I think it's going to be pretty popular. People love guilds and just going all guilds all the time, spicy guild cards. Keep in mind that they are permanents. So, like, I think if I was going to build this, just the way I would think about it first is probably like, okay, what type of permanent can stick on the battlefield, usually better than others? Well, indestructible things, like maybe an indestructible creature, or enchantments. I'd probably try to do like a lot of guild enchantment things and then just really lean heavily into getting those out. getting, again, I guess there's not too many extra combats in budget, but yeah, there are a couple. Using those, using Double Strike, of course, with this, and probably giving it haste and swinging through. Again, protection from multicolored is, or hexproof from multicolored is very nice. That can save from a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, just 5 mana for a 6/6 flyer that does all this, that's really crazy. So, yeah, I can see Niv-Mizzet Guildpact being very popular. Let me know what your thoughts are on that one. And of course, let me know what your thoughts are on all of these. Again, sorry for the kind of haphazardness of the episode with it being organized in, I guess, alphabetical, and then halfway through the episode, I got a ping that said, hey, yeah, Niv-Mizzet, did you see it? And I was like, wait, no, let's pause the episode, put that at the end, and then we go again. So if you saw a little hiccup in the middle of the episode, that's why. I'm just taking you behind the curtain just a little bit. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all these. Check the description below for the card list link for, yeah, the spoilers in Karlov. Those are getting updated as much as I can, essentially, when they're coming out and when they go up on TCG Player as well. Comment with your thoughts on all these. Stay tuned for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.